Do, 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 do. Welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, a business podcast about revenue-generating partnerships, not a podcast about business time with friends. We're your co-hosting couple. I'm Jason.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to the show, friends.
Welcome back to the episode, friends. We are in this. I don't even know what episode we're at. We're at the point of the podcast where I've lost count of how many episodes we've recorded. 12. Yeah, it's about as high as I can get. That's that higher math, whatever they call it. So, welcome back. This is awesome. We've got some fun planned today. A guest. I mean, you know who it is because you've probably seen the title already, but I'm thrilled to have with us a man who doesn't do a lot of these interviews. I feel like we're getting an exclusive.
Man of mystery.
Nobody asked me, man. Jeez, what's wrong with me?
The dark man of partnerships. We've got with us today the N to everyone's intent. See what I did there? We've got the one and only Charles Crnoevich, SVP Partnerships and Biz Dev at Bombora. Welcome to the show, my dude.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, that S is new this year, so, I've got a big ego now, so you'll have to go through my assistant to book me next time.
Ooh, I like
There's no
it.
assistant. The assistant's still me.
Yeah.
He just set up a separate email address for said assistant.
Exactly. Sort of like Crnoevich. Yeah.
One of those virtual assistants that you pay for out of your own pocket. That's not actually a bad idea.
It's really not.
So we go back a ways, Chuck. We were actually just talking before the show that 1 year ago today, you were actually here in Montana, and you and I were playing Big Sky Golf Course together.
We were working very hard that day, Jason. We didn't play any golf.
No, we were playing golf, working hard on the course.
Lots of deals discussed.
Yeah, you were looking for all your golf balls, and I was trying to get you to, do a deal with me or something. I don't know. It's actually the other way around.
Did we do it?
To be honest. Yeah. We got damn close.
Yeah.
But outside of, Anyway, moving on. So, Chuck, I know a lot about you because, we've been around together for a while. I know that you're about to get married. I know that you're a big golfer, which is evident by the clubs you've strategically placed in your background here. But tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Tell the listeners who the real Charles Crnoevich is.
Yeah. First, pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me. I really do love this podcast. I'm one of those people that pretends to listen to a lot of podcasts, but I actually do listen to this one. So thanks for putting this on and doing such a great job. Me, Charles Crnoevich, loved long walks on the beach, golf clubs. That Peloton's been ridden like 3 times. So,
But you just got it a day ago.
Yeah, exactly. Been at Bombora almost 9 years now. Started sales when we were a super, super small company where I was one salesperson. Started to work in partnerships probably 4 or 5 years ago. Haven't looked back since. Sad that I define myself by golf, Peloton, and my career, but I guess that's the intro.
And long walks on the beach.
And long walks.
Or long walks to clean juice. Either one.
I forgot about that. Are we going to tell that story? I don't know.
Go for it.
Little inside joke here. When Chuck was staying here in Bozeman, which is where Sam and I live. Chuck, you tell the story. Go for it.
Well, I live in New York, and you walk everywhere in New York. Manhattan's, a pretty small place, and I'm always on a get healthy kick, even though I'm not that healthy. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to wake up, go get a green juice. I Google, where's a juice place? And I guess it looked like 2 miles away. I didn't really think about it. And I ended up walking across like a highway, like 5 different subdivisions. I finally get there. I drink my juice. I try to walk back. And even with Google Maps, Apple Maps Waze, I got lost and I had to call an Uber to take me back to my hotel. So you take me out of New York, I'm pretty lost, I guess.
Moral of the story is Bozeman is not as walkable as Manhattan. So,
right, only the trails are walkable.
Well, when I got on the plane to Bozeman, this is going to show my only coastal knowledge of the United States, but I'm like, all right, go to Montana, it'll be great. I'm like, it's probably just a little northwest of Chicago, and I get on the flight, and I'm like, oh god, this is a 5 hour flight. I'm not sure I prepped for this, but that was a great trip.
Yeah, flying across the country. It's always surprising how long it takes to get here.
Yeah, no. Well, I appreciate the shout out about my upcoming wedding. I just got back from Vegas for my bachelor party last weekend, and it was a short flight getting there and a very long, depressing flight back. So the flight there is always a lot more fun.
Amen
I feel like
to that.
That Vegas regret is a thing for a lot of people. But we what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. We'll keep that off air.
I came home on time and in good physical health, so I call it a win.
There you go.
Nothing
That's
else
all that
matters.
You know.
Yeah. So we'll get into the heart of the matter, what the people are here for.
So you kind of mentioned this. You've been at Bombora for 9 years, you said. And you've moved into the executive seat. What has been the secret to your longevity at Bombora and in this partner role?
Bribery, clearly. No, I think it's honestly, I think there's a lot of people out there that are super smart, and I think it comes down to people just put the work in, grind every day, any job, sales, partnerships, marketing, whatever it is. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. You're going to get frustrated. Just keep going. I sound like a self-help book, but I guess just not get too high, not get too low, and just I'm fortunate that I work at a company that appreciates what I do. I've always loved the people here. We've had a lot of people here for a very long time. I was one of the first employees that wasn't at the company when they spun out of another organization. They were kind of, I'm blanking on the word, but a small number of people spun out of another company called Madison Logic. And I was one of the first external people that came over, and almost everybody from that spin out is still here, and a lot of people that started too. So, we just have a good team of people that trust each other, and everybody makes mistakes all the time. So just be honest, own up to it, and try to do better every day.
Being there that long and being one of the first in, you've clearly had a opportunity to meet everybody that comes to the company. How have those relationships played, I guess, to your advantage over time and what you've been building?
Yeah, I mean, being at a company for a long time, I think helps you in a lot of ways. It's, I've pretty much done every job at Bombora. I mentioned that I started in sales, but there was no partnerships, hardly any marketing. So very little customer operations stuff. So even little things that are probably siloed in departments now, I've done them all. So it helps to kind of just know how to do something and also know what people are going through. If you ask them to do something where it's their job now, and then, just having a personal relationship, kind of like I was talking about before, it helps if there's ever a tense moment or you're dealing with something and, hey, we're friends at the end of the day. We've been there for each other. So relationships will go a long way, especially when you're in a difficult situation, kind of like partnerships.
Exactly.
Love what you just said there. I was literally just on a call before this with somebody who's kind of looking to get into partnerships, and they were talking about what kind of background do I need, and what should my resume look like. And I love what you just said about having, you didn't use this word, but I'm going to put it in your mouth, empathy for all different departments within the organization, because we've talked about this. In order to be successful at partnerships, you have to be able to provide value across the organization. And I think one thing that you have to your benefit is you've been in each of those organizations, so you know what the day-to-day looks like. You can see how to add value, and that's awesome that you have that experience.
Yeah, and I know you guys have had some long longevity at startups too, so I know you're right there with me. It's the kind of, especially during COVID, where it became, one, people were hiring a lot, and two, obviously we didn't see each other very much, so there's a lot of new people, and I felt like a lot of people would just become, icons on Slack or some kind of, you send in a Jira ticket, someone replies back. It's good just to, try to take a step back and put yourself in someone's shoes, dumb things. Like when you put in a request, give them all the information they need so they can do the request well. Just common decency, I call it, but empathy is probably a more 2020 word.
I would imagine that, while a lot of programs have the quintessential problem of getting buy-in and establishing trust around the partner programs, being that you're kind of leading the program, been there for a while, that trust is kind of already pre-established for everyone that starts because, you're one of the first, you're one of the few, you're running the program, and people come in, they see Chuck at the helm, and for whatever reason, they've got trust in Chuck.
Yeah, it helps. Like, it helps the credibility, obviously, but, I still feel you gotta justify yourself almost every day. I'm sure you guys feel this way too, like knowing your numbers down. I've made the mistake of listening to Stalker's podcast earlier this morning with you guys, and I was like, man, this guy's so good. All of his answers are either what I would say, but said better, or something I hadn't thought about. But he brought one thing about just like having your numbers down colds. And I'm like, yeah, if you do that, it can justify what you're doing in a data-driven way. That also buys you some credibility to say, hey, this one's a little bit of a projection. This one's a little bit of a roulette chip that could pay off. But, the track record of performance does help you. Like, people have some confidence when you come with them with something that's maybe a little bit more out of the box. And also just if you're open about it, like, hey, this one might be a shot in the dark. So tell me.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys run into that too? Or maybe I'm the only one dealing with that.
Nope.
No.
I had a big one of those this year. Yeah, and it
Did it
didn't
work
pan out.
Ah.
No.
They rarely do, but I'm waiting for that big one. You gotta, it's a, what do they call it? It's a risk, but
Bluebirds, the whales.
yeah, I mean, hey, you what's the Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. As long as the downside of taking that shot and missing isn't that bad.
100%.
Yeah, as long as you're okay with it. So I feel like a lot of that risk and that willingness to risk comes from your time as like sales director. Like, how much of that role, like what you manage at sales, were you able to bring into establishing this partner program?
Yeah, it was, my partner program is probably a little different than like the classic partner program. Like, somebody's not in the business and just thinks of partnerships. They probably think of, referral programs and alliances. Like with our channel program, it's, partners selling our data or embedding their data into their offering to hopefully make their product stronger and higher performing. So even when I was in sales, we knew we had a good product for partnerships as a data company. Data works really well in software. So I wouldn't say I led some partner deals there, but I watched our co-founder, Mike Burton, who's our SVP of revenue, still my boss. He did some partnerships and I would help there just because it was just me and him over the beginning of it. And yeah, I guess the experience, you're still trying to sell people like, hey, our data can help your product perform better, help you sell more deals. And then often you're training their sales team, their CS team, and it's kind of, here's talk tracks, here's the vision you want to pitch to your end customers. So it's still a very salesy job in my mind.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, especially in those kind of OEM resale relationships. So going back to the sales director thing, and I've seen Burton on I think it's the Partner podcast.
Yeah.
So was it the
Took
two
my
of you
spot.
that started this?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a theme here. Who started the program? Was it you, him, together? Like, how'd you end up in the partner seat?
I'll give it to Mike. I'll be honest. When I first started at Bombora, this was my first time in really sales tech, martech, ad tech. So the first 6 months, I was like, man, I don't know what the hell anybody's talking about. Especially when it got to the advertising piece, I was like, how does that ad get on my computer? So Mike was definitely, it's in the computer. Mike was definitely running the show.
What's the cloud?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was lucky that we were small and we've always been self-funded. So there isn't the pressure that comes with like a ton of funding right away. Got to produce. So we started small and slow and I just got to learn a ton. So Mike definitely started. Also Eric Matlick, our CEO, he's always been a very, partner-centric person, which is also helpful for my longevity here. And then we had another colleague called Dale Durrett who came on probably 4 or 5 years ago. That's also a VP of partnerships here that works really closely with me on some different types of partnerships. So I learned a ton from him. And then, he's kind of got to do it a couple times and feel uncomfortable and be like, does this make sense to me? But I might be an idiot. Does it make sense to you? And then you realize, like, no, I know what I'm talking about. People think I have good ideas. So it's kind of a combination.
It's always good when you can surprise yourself.
Yeah, I know. It's a combination of like osmosis and then just trying it.
And also, I love what you said there about having the ability to like admit you're wrong.
Yeah,
that's a big thing too. And change course if needed.
I remember.
Okay,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking of like back in our early all hands meetings when it was like 20 of us. I think it was Mike or Eric that said, we're going to be wrong a lot, and that's okay. And I was like, all right, that's cool. As long as we're honest about it. And again, it's not so wrong that it's super detrimental. Like, especially in the early stages, you do have to try some stuff and figure out who you are. And we're still trying stuff. All of us, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And having the transparency, like you just said before, to be like, hey, this might not work, but I'm going to try it. And saying that from the get-go is going to set you up for everybody to be on the same page, at least. So it's not a big surprise at the end of the day.
Settle a bar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you've been in the partner role for 4 or 5 years now. Is that correct-ish?
I think so. Feels longer than that, but that sounds right.
I think we all feel that way from time to time.
Partner time, like it adds like a 0.5 to SAS time, which is already like 2 or 3 years advanced. So it's like 2.5 times that of normal time.
I agree with that completely.
Made it to another Christmas. Let's go.
So that being said, 4 or 5 times in the partner, or 4 or 5 years in the partner role, a lot can change. In your time here, how has the company's perspective or strategy changed in terms of partner?
It's a good question. Partnerships was always important to us because we always, not just me, but like I mentioned, my colleague Dale, there's other partnerships around some of our audience solutions products, our more ad tech products, and it drove a lot of revenue for us always. We kind of thought of it as our VC money because, we had this great partner program where we could drive a ton of revenue without a lot of internal people having to manage it, which had a great kind of like cost of customer acquisition for us. But partnerships has become more important. We see the sales and marketing landscape, the technology growing, the market getting more sophisticated, more types of customers, thinking of new ways to use data and software to drive really high-performing sales and marketing programs. And our data is fortunate enough to be like a big part of some of the stories in that space. So I think what we've seen is, we can cast a wider shadow than like our internal organization can do on its own if we, build strong, mutually beneficial partnerships with the right types of players. So partnerships only gets more important for us as the market evolves.
And I feel, based off what I know, like that is exceptionally true for Bombora in that, if I recall, your new role has you kind of managing some of the sales org, some of the BD org. Like it's now exceeding that of just the partner team, correct?
Yeah, we were pretty unique go-to-market where we have kind of like through our OEM partnerships, we often distribute some of our data in a limited capacity. It's basically, here's a good deliverable intent data. You might need more if intent is a big part of your strategy. And we built a team, we call it our partner-led sales team, PLS, where their job is really working closely with the partners, closely with their end customers to help them, one, get the most value out of the intent data that they currently have through our partners, and then see if it makes sense to use more. It doesn't make sense for everybody, but we've seen that, a lot of our market, or a lot of the market, has the interest in growing over time. So yeah, there's a sales org under me, a account management org, partner support, partner enablement, a lot. So yeah, I've got a lot of one-on-ones these days. Not all with HR either, thank God.
Yeah, not anymore. Yeah,
Okay.
those days are over with. Yeah, you've grown up out of those days. I feel like that just kind of like signifies how important partnerships are to Bombora, right? To build that level of team under you. It's no longer just about having, a partner, account manager who's just kind of being a glorified BDR, but you're running a full blown like partner sales org, and you put time in. And I think that comes with that longevity of what you've done in your time at Bombora, the trust you've built and established, and the ability to fail and learn from it. So like, love the fact that Eric and team have placed that level of value on your partner team.
I feel like there's a bug coming here, Yarby. No one says this many nice things about me before the hammer drops. What do you got for me, man?
Well, listen. I've had the opportunity and pleasure, if I may, to partner with you in the past for quite a while, right? We had a really, really strong partnership back during my time at Terminus, and you kind of, you feel the value there. And especially, I feel like we may have been one of your top partners, or at least I was treated as such, right? And,
at least you were told so.
Yeah, that's what the Christmas gift. I got the box of chocolates or something. I don't know. And with that, you kind of feel as a partner, like you feel that level of value coming from you guys, and that can only come from the top down, right? That has to start with Eric. That has to start with you. That has to start with the team that's influencing, the greater partner team. So there's no but. There's just the fact that I think you guys are building a good program.
No, I appreciate it, man. So it's never good to do anything kind of like halfway. So people feel that.
So to that point, like I said, I've been a partner and I've worked with you for a long time now. Like back when I was at PFL, I think you and I started working together maybe around 2018, 2019. So, and I feel like Bombora has a lot of those long-time partners, right? If we're kind of getting back to the core of what this podcast is about, relationships, let's talk a little bit about long-term relationships, right? It seems that you and your team grow, and well, more so you retain your partners and you're able to grow those partners more than most that I know that are out there, right? What do you believe is the key to maintaining those long-term relationships with your partners?
Yeah, you're definitely jinxing it. So I'm waiting to see what happens after this podcast drop. But no, it's true. It's like
the power of editing, man.
It's corny, but it just like starts with honesty. I guess at the end of the day, like I'm probably in my personal life trying to get better at it too. Like going back to empathy, you kind of know what people want you to say, and sometimes it's just easy to tell them what they want to hear, but that stuff will bite you down the road. No one's perfect, but just try to be upfront and honest as humanly possible. Especially, in our space, we do partner with a fair amount of companies that compete with each other to some degree. So there's a lot of tough conversations that come with a partnership job, not just mine, but anybody. And I think people respect, even if it's not the answer they want to hear. Like, you tell them the truth, then this isn't all the time. You're telling people bad news, but I find that those tough times are when you really establish some credibility and trust. And I'm not sure a lot of people see it that way, but that's the time when I'm like, this is probably the most important time to just have an open book and be honest with people. But, other than that, you mentioned, or maybe I did too, but just not make it me, have other people, other execs understand the value of our partnerships, have their own relationships with the CEOs or other members of the partnership team, so that's not just this funnel of information, the partnership person on one side, partnership person on the other side, and then trying to make sure that each other's executive teams understand the potential or the value here. So I guess that answer is just not do your job, slack off and let the CEOs talk to each other every once in a while. But it's true, it can't be just siloed with you, because you'll get tuned out eventually.
Yeah.
I think that's great. One thing I think that's not a lot of people talk about that, and we say it all the time, like don't partner alone, because it's not going to work. But another huge facet of partnerships is facilitating other relationships to happen, and doing that with executives across the board. Jay, I don't think anybody has talked about that on our podcast yet, so there's a first.
Yeah.
But I think it's huge. I mean, that's a huge thing. So aside from that, you've talked about a little bit how your partner program is really based on OEM resale relationships primarily. Aside from honesty, what is the key to building these healthy relationships and, making sure that your customers keep coming back to you and your partners keep coming back to you?
I mean, it's a great question. I think one, the product's got to be strong, good outlet. I believe we have a good product. I'll be honest, when I first started working here and we built the first year I was here, we actually didn't have our product now called Surge Data. So I was working with kind of a team to help build that. And first couple of times this is selling directly to customers, not so partners, but you're selling this data product. We were selling spreadsheets like every data company when they start. And I remember when it's a big company, I probably shouldn't say who they were, but they were testing it through like, hey, we're going to run an email campaign. Do the emails that companies you said were showing intent, do they perform better than these other ones? And I was like, oh God, are we selling vaporware here? It's not again. I can't do this. And every time I start to have any crisis of faith, the data just works. So that's great. I have faith in the product. We have an amazing product team that's always trying to make it better. So, and partners validate that too. So one, I guess, is a good product. Two would be, you mentioned it, Jay, said you're being too kind, but probably just like the level of willingness to help. I have a great team under me that's kind of like partner enablement, partner development, partner support. And we kind of go out our way to make sure that we set up Slack channels with partner sales teams, partner CS teams, and we're not bugging them. I think some people might worry like, oh, you're going to spam people, but it's really just kind of an open forum where like, hey, if you have any question, big or small, there's going to be some big lunch and learn training, but we want to be in the trenches with you to try to help you guys win and deal with the losses if we're a part of that loss too. So it's probably something that maybe doesn't make it up to like the executive level, but just the commitment to put our effort into it too. So it's not just here's the data, write us a check if you sell some. That goes a long way, I think.
Okay, I have a quick question on this because I bet you everybody on this who's listening has set up joint Slack channels with partners, and then it's just like crickets.
Yeah. I think that, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I mean, what's your so do you continually, how do you make sure that it's not spamming, but it's still an active, productive conversation?
Yeah. And look, I've seen those too, for sure. I kind of, it comes down to like the work you've done with the other side to like really say, is this partnership worth it? Is it meaningful to both sides? And I've done it too, where you get off a call and there's really not, I would say there's not much there, but there's no like driving force. But sure, anybody could be like a referral partner at any point in time. And you're like, okay, let's set up a Slack channel for our salespeople, but there's not that much commitment on either side. It's kind of a half-hearted thing. Just knowing that some people are mutual customers, if you don't put the kind of like work in to train and establish a value prop across the whole partnership, that's where you get crickets, or there'll be this random person reaching out to one of your like strategic CSMs, be like, hey, I see this is a customer of yours. Like, what can you do to get me in there? I'm like, no, it's not really earned yet. There's a lot of,
good point.
A lot of groundwork that has to happen before those kinds of relationship work in my mind. I mean, Sam, it seems like you've built a really good program around that. And like, I still struggle. Like our channel business is really strong, but some of those like referral relationships, co-selling relationships, those are always a struggle. I don't know. I'll flip the switch. Like, how have you seen those kind of like crickets Slack channels actually become productive?
Yeah, I mean, and I think you said it, you have to earn the trust, and it's not just like, okay, now we have a Slack channel with 400 people. Business is going to flow. No, unfortunately. If anybody has figured that out, please call us. It's taking those conversations one-off and like building them individually. And then when you do have a win or you do have a great relationship that has, landed a whale or a big expansion account, then you go into that Slack channel and you make that person seem like a freaking hero. And you start to like build excitement and, relationships that way. It's not one to the masses, it's one to many.
I'll add on top of that as well. It's like when I started back at Drift, right? Drift and 6 Cents had a massive shared Slack channel, and it was just, who knows this person? Who knows that person? There's really no real engagement. So I reached out to our partner marketing manager, shout out to Nick Sal, and I was like, Nick, let's take some of these channels that have, a lot of people and we've got huge potential and begin to treat this like a community. Right? Let's begin to treat this like it's not just a sales channel, but more of a community, to Sam's point, highlighting some wins, right? Let's share some content that we're, maybe we were talking about each other or that is relevant to the relationship or relevant to the industry. Let's share some events and stuff like that. And how do we get conversation moving and flowing, amongst each other or maybe some of the leaders that are in there. That's not just, hey, I need an intro here or I need some intel there, right? Which is great. But, again, when you begin to build a relationship, you begin to earn it, right? You get that trust. And, you can't have a relationship without the trust. And, that comes by building, the community and the engagement.
And doing the groundwork, like you said.
Yeah, no, it's like I think it's a good sign. Like, it can't be a one-sided partnership because then no one cares. Like, there's got to be something in it for both sides, and doing the work, like Yarby saying, even if it's just like it's not dollars yet, but it's like, let's make our mutual customers super successful, and let's make a case study about that. Kind of elevate that. That's the kind of groundwork I think it takes a lot of the time to like get to a bigger, better place.
Yeah, that's kind of the value that we talk about as well on this podcast quite a bit. But speaking of the one-sided, two-sided relationship, I want to kind of take a little turn here, a little bend in the road.
Is this the red wedding moment?
Exactly. Yeah, a little Game of Thrones reference, which is kind of relevant to this next question. Peter Dinklage, for those that know. You're kind of like the Cyrano de Bergerac of SaaS, if I may, right?
Okay. Stop. Who is that?
I only know that reference. I knew it was like a play back in the day, but there was like a movie, the guy had like a huge nose. Am I thinking of the right
Correct.
guy? All right.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I'm cultured, New Jersey.
Yes, correct. Yeah, way back in the day, I think Steve Martin played.
Are you making a comment on Chuck's nose?
Wow.
No. Make it a comment. No, wow. Just took that one to a different place.
That's fired. On a Friday? Jeez.
I don't know what this person is.
So he was, I believe it was a play from the early 1800s, perhaps. I have to look up the date, but I don't really know. But Cyrano de Bergerac basically believes that he's, and Chuck, this is not where I'm going with this, but this is the context and the backstory of Cyrano de Bergerac. He believes that he's kind of unlovable, right?
Right.
And he's kind of got this big nose, and he just thinks like, nobody's gonna like me, nobody's gonna want to talk to me. I can't fall in love with a woman, so I'm just gonna stay in the background. So he begins to help kind of his rival, I think his name was Christian, to talk to women.
He's
right?
like,
how to fall in love.
Yeah, it's coming back to me. Gotcha.
He's in the bushes, like whispering to Christian of like how to talk to Roxanne. And really, Cyrano de Bergerac is in love with Roxanne, but so is Christian, his rival, right? So he's telling Christian how to talk to this woman. So where I'm getting at with this
We're
is
coming
that
full circle.
you guys, what I like about what you provide to your partners is the data, right? You're essentially supplying data to your partners and their customers that allows them to have these relevant conversations, right? These conversations about how to get their customers to fall in love with them based off the knowledge that you have of these prospects, right? Have you, being kind of, somewhat of the front man for Bombora, I've seen you do some webinars and stuff, like found yourself in scenarios where you're working with partners or their customers on how to actually use that intent data in a relevant way. For example, like how to build an effective sales relationship using the intent data.
Yeah, totally. I'm I'm taking out that the analogy. It got there at the end, by the way.
I'm gonna say your marketing team. Feel free to use that.
Yeah.
Like you're out
Free
Hide
of
yourself in some
charge.
bushes.
No, it's especially when we're lucky you gotten this point now where like our data and our brand has some recognition, but especially in the early going, especially when you're working with salespeople, the most skeptical people on the planet, myself being one of them. Yeah, you got to prove it to them. You got to show them it works. Often partners will use it themselves. And I think that goes back to the level of depth of support and guidance we provide to kind of teach them step by step, here's how it works. And then they're putting their, reputation on the line when talking to their customer and selling them, hey, this is a great thing for you. So you giving them that confidence, you showing them case studies, you just kind of being involved and letting them know it's going to be okay to some degree, I think goes a long way. And then the proof's in the pudding if the customer comes back and is super happy with it. I think kind of saying what you were saying earlier about getting wins and, shouting them from the rooftops. People can be skeptical, but then when they see something work, then, it does flip. And like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too. If this is good for my customers, then I'd love to find something new to sell them. So yeah, it's especially in the early days, it's still now even, it's, a lot of proven value before, something becomes big for either side.
Yeah, and I guess that too is it's a whole lot of like talking in the bushes, if I may, to your partners and resellers on how they can spin these stories up to their customers using this data, because like you've got the relevance that they need, right? In any relationship, you kind of want to these days you can do some research, aka some stalking, to find out more about this person you're dating or you're courting or going after, or your prospects, right? And you guys are helping really expedite relationships, and I kind of love that play from an intent standpoint.
Yeah, no, it's funny from where we started, where I got laughed out of a lot of meetings early on at Bombora, and like if this data was real, and now there's a Forrester wave about it, like it's recognized as a real thing in a real category, so it's cool to see. Yeah, no, it's pretty good. I give you a lot of the credit, Jason, from all the you pitch Bombora better than I do, actually.
I had a lot of experience back when I was at Terminus. We did a lot with you guys.
That's because you are in the bushes, Chuck.
Yeah. That's true. I would, I'm the ugly guy feeding Jason lines. He's got a great idea. I don't like a compete. Come on, man.
Chuck's always been in my bushes, man. I need to get you out of there.
Okay. Friends with benefits, man.
It's exactly how I envision this podcast going.
I want to go back to your comment of being left out of meetings. I mean, yeah, data is always changing, always moving. It is a little elusive out there. So going back to 2017, going back to yourself in 2017, what would you do differently, knowing what you know now?
It's a great question. Probably, I mentioned a little bit before, but just be better at tough conversations. Like, it's like anything. It's like even asking your first sale, like asking for money and getting inside. It's like really uncomfortable the first couple times. And then when you do it enough times, you're like, oh, people want to buy these things, or they want to at least like have the opportunity to, or some of the partnership stuff where sometimes he'll just say something that will get you out of a conversation. Not that it's like an outright lie or anything, but you don't address things head on. I think that's something I've learned to do a lot better over the years. Just confidence too, that comes with doing things for a while, where you're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't say this because it's stupid. And my favorite thing will be to start something where I actually am not sure if it's a stupid comment. I'll be like, guys, feel free to ridicule me if this is super dumb, but have you ever thought about this? And just, I feel like being vulnerable sometimes when you might think it's a good idea, but you're not sure, is often also something where I try not to leave, trying to leave in the tank. At least, maybe you're onto something really cool. So those are probably some of the things I've got a little better at.
How much of that ability to really be vulnerable in those team meetings comes from the culture of, not being afraid to take risk and failing?
Yeah, it's up there. I mean, it's always one of those things where you want to like again, to Mike's point, you want to have a good foundation. Even if you don't, being vulnerable is a good thing. I think if you're just one of those people that's a blowhard and like says things like the loudest voice in the room and just says it with confidence, like there's a lot of smart people in this industry. They're going to see through you. So if you're not sure, say you're not sure, but you get, it only takes one great idea sometimes. So if you have to go through 50 crummy ones to get there, that's probably all that matters.
Do you find yourself leading that charge in these meetings of like being vulnerable? And if so, does that kind of...
I usually am the first to cry in meetings, yeah.
And I feel like I'm the first to get texted after you cried in those meetings.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of... anyway. No, I mean, I think we have a good culture at Bombora, especially the people that know each other a long time. And that just like that relationship over time also really helps because you don't have to put on any kind of front or anything like that. Like, you know them, they know you. So I'd say it's just kind of and even with new people, like I think after you work with a lot of people at our company for a while, you realize like ego isn't a big thing at our company. So, and again, being wrong isn't the worst thing in the world. So I wouldn't say I'm leading the charge, but I'm definitely one of the people that find value in just the honesty, the vulnerability.
Well, you've been there for, you said you were one of the early people, and that's a culture that takes commitment, and like you can't just like stay, we're okay with failing and we're a vulnerable company. That you have to like show up every day and prove that day in and day out. So how do you, like within your own team, how do you lead by example? How do you help people handle internal conflict? Like what are the actual like day-to-day actions on that?
Yeah, I'm probably making us sound like we're just super vulnerable and messing up all the time. Like we do have some good days, so I'll put that out there.
Clearly you do.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it's like I've never, not at Bombora, but I've seen situations at other companies where my boss would give me something that they have no idea how to do or just didn't want to do it, and I would rather like if you're giving somebody some work, like let them know why it's important, and often like do it with them the first however many times just to show them like, hey, this is how it can be done. And especially if there are things that are difficult or nuanced, show them. You don't want to do somebody's job for them forever, but I think taking the time to do it with them the first several times just shows them like, oh, it can be done. This is how it's done. The way he does it, I could do it slightly different, but no one's putting me in the situation that's impossible. So I think just, again, going back to empathy, putting yourself in someone else's shoes and showing them, hey, it's going to be okay.
So back to the vulnerability thing. How do you find yourself helping your team or holding your team's hands or coaching to vulnerability to allow them to feel safe enough to take those risks, ask those seemingly quote unquote dumb questions, and being that person on your team that's beside you?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just leading by, like, there's a lot of things where we have initiatives and strategic initiatives where we're confident. We are very confident they're the right ideas. We've seen them work, and I think also if there's ones that aren't quite at that level, just again, be honest with them. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Don't force it down their throat. Ask them, give them your opinion, see if they think there's validity to it. And then, just kind of constantly measuring, and I guess being able to admit that, hey, we were wrong. I think that's the other thing, like knowing to cut bait on some things that aren't the right idea. That's not in this just quagmire forever. And I think that just shows people that it's okay to bring up ideas. And sometimes you'll have to, not so much on my team because they're pretty honest with me. They know they can give me the real, but those meetings where it's just dead quiet at the end of it. Sometimes you just gotta be like, guys, is this silence? You're telling me that this is a really stupid idea? If so, let's talk about it. So sometimes it helps just to be super upfront.
Yeah, I've worked with you and known you long enough to know that you're kind of, So you mentioned earlier, like honesty and being brutally honest and kind of straightforward. Like I feel like that's genuine to who you are, right? I think that's what makes, the team, the program you build, successful. And like it requires, even at your level now in Bombora, like that honesty and openness to talk to the team and have those conversations. Like you got to bring that into the conversations, right? And honesty is really only an extension of being willing to be vulnerable, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah. Honesty, hard work, and, all the dumb ideas don't make it past the cutting room floor if you get feedback from your teams, exec members, that's probably the other thing too. Like I have a lot of ideas, but maybe don't try all of them, especially if you're the only person that thinks it's a good idea, don't shove it down people's throats. You only got so many roulette chips.
That's why we share them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, hey, I think this is a dumb idea, but I can't sell my team on a Yarby. Maybe you should try it. Not
yeah. How would you share
if
this?
It's a good idea, cut me in.
That's so good.
So you just kind of mentioned it. You have an S in front of your name, which is awesome. So you're on the exec team, and that's fantastic. And I sit in this chair too, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Like the difference between advocating for partners at that level versus more of a strategic level. How have you seen that change in your role? What are your thoughts on that?
I'd love to hear your answer. For me, it hasn't changed that much, to be honest with you. I've always had a good relationship with all the execs, so I felt like I had that kind of voice before, yes, this crucial letter, but probably just have to honestly answer a lot of questions for myself that maybe my boss would be answering for me. But definitely just learning. I think probably one of the biggest things people learn in business is just how to say a point concisely, which I'm sometimes not great at. Probably haven't been great on this podcast about. So just trying to drill things down to the most crucial part of it, the things that really matter, and not go into too much of the denouement or whatever. So I think that's probably something that I'll always need to work at. But what do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you just said about being concise, and that's something I'm working on, my team's working on. But I mean, PFL, there's 300 employees, so it's much big. And I came in, I don't even know, 270. I was not one of the first. So being able to move into the exec team was really helpful for me because it gave me a much larger picture of the organization at large, and being actual peers with the CMO, the CRO, the CTO, understanding what's going on, I can insert myself a lot easier. When they don't see a need for partners, it's a lot easier for me to just say, I can help there, or we're struggling with pipeline. All right, let's get all our partners involved. So it's not so much like, pay attention to me. It's like we're very aligned, and that's really helpful just to be able to see how partners can really influence across the org rather than just fight to insert ourselves.
No, that makes sense. I think I've heard it on the podcast before, and I think it's a common thing for a lot of people in partnerships to say, if the execs don't get it, or the CEO or the CRO doesn't get it, you're not in good shape, because some of the metrics are, outside of the channel revenue, which is great for me because it's just here's the revenue. Here's what it is. I also track more, I'll call it just, what the stereotypical partner metrics of partner source deals, partner influence deals. It's more than partner influence is it actually is a real valuable stat, but it's one of those, I feel bad for my marketing colleagues sometimes because marketing influence, marketing touch, but there's always some level, if you don't have the right executive team, of, is that really real? What does that really mean? So
I've been told it was squishy before in previous roles.
It's a good word. Yeah, I think it was Elliot that told me this one time, Smith from Sixth Sense, and he was saying if you get alignment from the right people at your company, you can just be yeah, it's a little squishy. in some parts, but like if we agree on the criteria of what this really means, sure. Sometimes maybe it's a little less important. Sometimes it's super crucial, and you just hope, the aggregate of the system you've designed like speaks for itself, and you're doing enough volume where you're like, hey, sure, there's some small sample size on either side of the spectrum, but that we agreed to this definition. So yeah, hopefully you see.
Yeah. As long as it's helping advance pipeline and find some velocity to it, then like there's no argument there. And that's kind of how I've won the argument over time, the previous roles.
Yeah, totally. It's, have the metrics ready. And if I think it's probably that honesty thing again, if you start to get the sense of someone being like, this is super squishy, like, well, let's talk about it. If it is, no point to let it.
For sure. No. Well, yeah. And go back. One of the things you said about the exec team, like, and we'll close with this, is like, I love what you said, is like being able to answer the questions for yourself. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that you would normally ask your boss, if you're able to answer the questions for yourself, you're answering the questions of like, is this revenue sourced or influenced valuable? Is it showing the right value? Am I pointing my team in the right direction, bringing partners along at the right time, and doing all these proper motions with partners that actually provide value to the company? And you're able to adequately answer that and say, yeah, we're doing the right job. This is what's going to matter when I get to the table with the rest of the exec team. Then yeah, instead of just kind of trying to guess or bring it to the team to see if this is what's working for them.
Yeah.
So I like that answer. Let's bring it home. We like to end the Friends with Benefits podcast, as you probably know, with a little fun, little unique question to the world of partnerships, more closer aligned to you, the person, Charles Crnoevich, the golfer, Charles Crnoevich.
Boom.
Let's say you're going out for your dream day on the course. You've put together the ideal foursome. Who is and it could be anybody. Who's your ideal foursome that you're going to play golf with that are not partners?
Oh man, that is a really good one. We're gonna have to edit this podcast so I can think for 10 minutes. I'll go with Tiger Woods. Tiger would be great.
Feeling confident.
We'll go with Aaron Judge. I love Aaron. It's my third. We'll go Jeff Bezos. Sure. Jeff's made a couple bucks this day. He'd pay for the round. Yeah.
Fair.
Absolutely. That's a strong.
We need one rich guy. Actually, three rich guys.
Sponsor.
Yeah. That's a strong foursome, man. I like it. Some big hitters all around. So excellent.
That's true. Maybe I should leave Judge at home so I can be the long driver.
Yeah. I've seen Chuck drive. It is impressive. He's got a big driver. It's a nice work. Chuck, Charles, Mr. Crnoevich, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. This has been a blast, and look forward to doing it again next July 28th, because that's obviously our day.
It clearly is. Now, thank you guys. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing this. I look forward to listening to the next couple guests.
We appreciate you immensely. We'll talk soon. Thanks, friends. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Do 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 do.